Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we've got your Week 13 start and sit video for the running back position. If you haven't already, make sure you guys check out our start and sit video for the quarterback position, and of course, stay tuned for our other positions in the wide receiver and tight end to help you guys with your fantasy lineups. Now, there are 2 weeks left of the fantasy season, and then you're going into the playoffs. So hopefully you guys are positioned either already locked in your playoff spot or at least getting into a position to lock in the next week or two. Now, as far as running backs, obviously, these are your obvious starts at the running back position. Not many. A lot has to do with the fact that there are still 6 teams on a bye this week, and then, of course, injuries. So you do have to account for that, but these are the guys I really like this week. Now, the first running back I'm going to recommend as a start is going to be Najee Harris versus the Cardinals. Look, Cardinals just gave up 38 points to Kyren Williams, who just came off of a pretty big injury. Not something super crazy, right? He was out for a few weeks. Kyren just went off on them. Now, Cardinals are allowing a touchdown per game this season, and in the last 5 games alone are allowing 132 yards on the ground. This is huge. Now, with that said, this offense for the Pittsburgh Steelers is still a little unknown, right? They just got one of their first over 400-yard, offensive games in I think 50 so odd games, which is crazy to me. So there's going to be some uncertainty as how this offense is going to play out. Now, you could put Jalen Warren in this lineup as well. I think he's still a good start this week. But I like Najee just a little bit more. He showed up really well last week, one of his best games all season. And I think this new OC is going to use him a lot more, use him as the bell cow, and still sprinkle in Jalen Warren as a, I would say, a mixture of pass, receiving, and of course, being a nice little running back as well. Now, Najee's knack has been, he's not a great explosive player off the line, and his receiving aspect, well, he has shown he can do it. They tend to go to Jalen Warren. So Jalen Warren still is a great play this week, but I do like Najee this week. I think it's going to be a nice, sneaky little play where he's going to have a great outing, a nice little touchdown to keep him in the 15 to 16 point range. I like him as a nice wide receiver too this week. Now, another running back I like this week is going to be Tony Pollard versus the Seahawks. Pollard has had 2 games in a row where he scored a touchdown, which has been fantastic because he struggled all season. His last time he had scored a touchdown prior to those 2 games was the first game of the season, and then he went blank. So a lot of people were kind of hesitant, almost to the point where they weren't starting him. Maybe even traded him away because he wasn't playing as well as he could have, or at least what most people expected where they drafted him. Now he's going against a Seahawks team for Thursday night where Seattle's allowing a touchdown a game, 128 yards on the ground. Like, this is a really good matchup, and they're also allowing 5 receptions per game as well in the last 4 games. So Tony Pollard should get some receptions. Again, they should eat up some clock. Dallas should be up in this one. We'll see how this plays out. Dallas has played really well at home. But obviously, Seattle is a strong team that is fighting for their playoff spot. So it's going to be a nice little matchup, but I like Pollard a lot this week. Now, the last running back I like this week is going to be Bijan Robinson versus the Jets. As good as the Jets defense is, and they are good, one struggle they have is stopping the run. That's been a problem for them. Last 5 games alone, they've allowed 122 yards on the ground, averaging 18.4 points to running backs in the fantasy space. And Arthur Smith finally actually used his first round talent as a running back. Like, you have Bijan Robinson and you're finally deciding to use him, which has been great. Now, if the crazy Arthur Smith decides to actually want to try to make the playoffs this season because the Falcons are in position for it, this is where they have to use Bijan. I like Bijan's matchup against the Jets. I really like him this week. Now, my running back I'm going to sit in that same matchup is Breece Hall versus the Falcons. Look, I don't trust Breece Hall a lot. A lot of it has to do with not him per se. He did tweak a hamstring, so you do have to monitor that as well. But the Falcons have yet to allow a rushing touchdown to a running back this year. In the last 3 games alone, have only allowed 77 yards on the ground while keeping backs to about 13 points a game. So is there a chance where he could be a strong flex play? Sure, Breece might get you that 13-point range, maybe. And again, that's not horrible at flex. I'd rather put somebody in my flex that can actually boom a lot higher. Falcons have done a really good job against the run in general. Breece has struggled. He's had a few good games here and there, but a lot of it's been more on the receiving side where he's had some boom plays. I just don't trust this Jets offense. They're not playing well. Obviously, there's the news of Aaron Rodgers possibly coming back. He's been designated to return from IR, which is crazy news. But Breece Hall, sorry, I'm not trusting you this week. Another running back I don't like this week is going to be Brian Robinson versus the Dolphins. Look, Miami has been stout against the run. Like, they've been great. Now, part of it is they've struggled against the pass and teams have tried to keep up, so the running game is pretty much negated. So I understand that aspect. And that's probably going to be very similar to this game. I expect the Dolphins to be up, which means Sam Howell and that passing offense has to try to keep up, which means Brian Robinson's negated. He's game scripted out. On top of that, the last 5 games, they've held backs to 9.1 points a game, and they haven't allowed a touchdown in 4 games. So the Dolphins have done a really good job. Again, this can be a game-scripted game where Brian Robinson gets pushed out. Antonio Gibson might have a little bit of value because he's really their receiving back. I just don't trust either one this week. Now, the last running back I'm sitting this week is going to be Zach Charbonnet versus the Cowboys. Again, Thursday night. Charbonnet is not going into a good matchup. Like his games where he's actually able to play because Kenneth Walker's injury have been really bad matchups. Like really bad matchups. Seattle, now Dallas, like 2 tough matchups for Charbonnet to really show off his skill set. And the offensive line struggling for Seattle. Dallas has yet to allow 100-yard to a running back so far this season. And on top of that, in the last 4 games, they've held running backs to 8.3 points a game. So this is going to be a game where Charbonnet might get game scripted out, which is a good chance. The offensive line is struggling. Cowboys defense is stout. They've been able to make plays. I'm just going to sit him this week. Now, my sleeper of this week is going to be Devin Singletary versus the Broncos. Look, Singletary has been great this season since he's taken over the RB1. He's been a solid RB2 with some RB1 upside this season. He's averaged over 13 points for the season. Now plays a Broncos team that has, even though done a really good job defensively in the last 5 games since their win streak has been going on, has still been susceptible to the running game. Like, they've allowed some big plays happening on the ground still. They're allowing 93 yards a game. Singletary could be a really solid flex play this week, or again, a nice RB2 role. Not expecting a huge game out of him, but I do expect him getting closer to 80 to 85 yards on the ground. Few receptions here and there, maybe gets a touchdown to kind of get you that boom, but I'm expecting a 13 to 14 point game out of him this week. So those are my start sits and sleepers for week 13. If you guys have questions for your lineups, hit up in the comments down below. If you haven't already, smash the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the like button. Check out our other start and sit videos, and I'll check you guys out next time.